Conclave is out in theaters, new film from director Edward Berger, who previously made the 2022 version of All Quiet on the Western Front. This is based on the 2016 novel under the same title, written by Robert Harris, which I have not read. The movie stars Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, Lucian Msamati, and Isabella Rossellini. I would describe it as a political thriller centered around a conclave. For the non-Catholics out there, this is the Pope election thing that happens whenever the old Pope dies. That's the start of the movie. Pope is dead, and Cardinal Lawrence, played by Ralph Fiennes, is left with the responsibility of organizing and managing the conclave, the elections. Around 100 other cardinals from around the world arrive. They are locked up in the Vatican facilities, and several times a day they take a vote where a 2/3 majority is required to become the next pope, and thus begin the political games between several ambitious cardinals, disrupted even further by an unexpected arrival at the last minute of a new cardinal that has been secretly appointed by the Pope prior to his death. So I really liked this film. I think it's an example of a good material in terms of the script, engaging story, and well-written dialogue that is elevated even further by its execution. I will start with the script though. I thought it felt remarkably realistic and lifelike and believable, with the exception of perhaps the reveal at the end, which I thought was maybe a half a step too much. But even then, that reveal is still in line with the movie's themes, which are secrets that all these cardinals have and maintain and struggle to keep hidden from the world. As such, it's a commentary on the church and its institutional nature, and a sort of realization that underneath all these ceremonies and weird cult practices and special clothes, these are people. These are old, ambitious, power-hungry men who stab at each other's backs and have vices just like the rest of us. I love the subtle little touches, like early shots of cardinals smoking cigarettes, vaping, looking at their phones before they are sequestered in the Vatican quarters. It was a wonderful way to subtly begin already exploring those themes, to drive the point home that under these fantastical red robes, these are ordinary men. I also liked how a large part of the film becomes this political conflict between two factions within the church, the traditionalists and the liberals. And even though sometimes it does feel like the characters are too much of mouthpieces for these sets of ideals, for the most part it works to show the two sort of directions that the modern church is being pulled in. And to show how even the people within the church must be aware of the church's shortcomings, its faults and sins in the modern world and before that. And crucially, it doesn't really ever become a pastiche or a scathing critique of faith as a whole. I think the movie manages to take the delicate position of criticizing the institution without ridiculing the ideals behind it. I thought all the performances are fantastic. I especially liked Ralph Fiennes. This must be one of his stronger works. Stanley Tucci, very good, and Isabella Rossellini. She especially ends up having surprisingly little to do, although I guess shouldn't be that surprising in a movie about an institution dominated by men. But she manages to do wonderful things in that little time allocated to her, and her final scene especially is great, very memorable. Which leads me to also mention the humor. There are moments of genuine, unexpected levity here, and they landed perfectly, as evidenced by my movie theater exploding into laughter several times. There's also one moment which, because I haven't seen the trailer, I wasn't spoiled. It was a huge surprise to me in a very visceral, dramatic sense, and I won't say which moment that is for the other folks that haven't seen the promotional material, but when you watch the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. And the final reveal at the end, even though, as I said, is probably a touch too implausible for me, also definitely left an emotional mark, judging by the dead silence in the theater. I also want to quickly mention the music, and in general just the sound design. You have the great score, very reminiscent of modern day art house horror films, but then also using things like the speeches and the homilies echoing in the big marble halls of the churches. I think that was all done very well. And then the cinematography, which is probably the strongest point of the movie overall. There's so many beautiful shots in here. The ones that especially come to mind are the sequence of the candidates shown alone among the empty benches around them after one of the votes. The cardinals walking around with the white umbrellas shot from overhead. The big action moment, which again I won't spoil, and the speech scene towards the end, where that entire scene has the characters all sitting together in a dark lecture hall. I thought that was just wonderful to look at. And I think, the film as a whole is being helped by the deliberate use of color and contrast. The reds of the cardinals' clothing popping out against the whites and grays of the often marble backgrounds. Overall, really like this film. I think it's a very good example of a movie that has a simple premise, sort of limited scope, but because of the way it's put to screen, it just grips you from the first moment up until the last. It's clever, intelligent, beautiful to look at, thought-provoking, and executed very, very well. I certainly recommend seeing this one.